homage to Buddha Shakyamuni, homage to Manjushri, homage to all the lineage masters. The supreme, profound and subtle Dharma is rarely encountered in eons. Now we hear and follow it. May we realize the Tathagata's meaning. To liberate beings, please generate bodhicitta before teaching. Now let us continue our study of the Bodhicharyavatara. We have already completed the first chapter of the Bodhicharyavatara. Now we are in the general explanation of the second chapter. In the content we studied yesterday about the general explanation, we have discussed how to receive the Bodhisattva vow. After receiving it, the next important question is, how do we protect and uphold the Bodhisattva vow? Yesterday, I also introduced the precepts for maintaining the Bodhisattva vow. You probably still remember. According to the Han tradition, the Bodhisattva vow is received based on the Brahma's Net Sutra. I mentioned this yesterday as well. There are also some interesting historical accounts. One says it was the time of Master Paramartha. Another account says it was the time of Dharmaksema. There were some disciples, such as Fajin, who requested Dharmaksema to translate the ritual for the Bodhisattva vow. At first, Dharmaksema did not agree. They also asked him to confer the Bodhisattva vow, but he did not agree either. He felt that these disciples were not yet suitable vessels, but these disciples made various offerings in front of Buddha statues and prayed with deep devotion. On the 8th night, they all had the same dream. In their dream, Maitreya and other bodhisattvas appeared and conferred the bodhisattva vow upon them. After this, Dharmaksema was very pleased. He then translated the ritual for conferring the bodhisattva vow from Sanskrit. Interestingly, during the translation of the bodhisattva vow ritual, they found that the content matched what Maitreya had taught them in their dream. From then on, many people in the Han region began to receive and uphold the Bodhisattva vow in this way. This tradition became established in the Han region. During the time of Master Kumarajiva, as mentioned yesterday, more than 800 people requested to receive the vow. Later, according to the Dunhuang ritual, there was also a tradition of receiving the Bodhisattva vow. In Han Buddhism today, the Bodhisattva vow is often conferred during the triple platform full ordination ceremony. The way the vow is conferred may differ somewhat from Tibetan Buddhism. For example, there are confession masters and precept instructors, among others. There are also many Dharma teachers. Through these ceremonies, the text of the Bodhisattva vow is distributed to everyone. Whether you study Han Buddhism or Tibetan Buddhism, the first thing you should understand is the importance of bodhicitta. If you do not understand the importance of bodhicitta, especially if you have not developed faith in the Mahayana, have not developed compassion for sentient beings, and have not made the aspiration yourselves, then the Bodhisattva vow cannot truly arise in your mind streams. No matter how well the ritual is performed, you must possess these three conditions in your own heart. This is what Bhutan Rinpoche also explained in his commentary on the Bodhicharyavatara. He said that to receive the Bodhisattva vow, you must have these three qualities. First, faith in the three jewels. Second, compassion for sentient beings. And third, the willingness to receive the Bodhisattva vow and the wish to benefit others. You must have all three. If any of these three is missing, you cannot truly receive the Bodhisattva vow. Whether you are a Dharma teacher or a qualified spiritual friend, it is essential to confer the Bodhisattva vow according to an authentic ritual. This is very important because composing a ritual is not the task for ordinary people. We should rely on the rituals composed by the great masters of the past. If the Bodhisattva vow we received in the past was not in accordance with the Dharma, we can retake the Bodhisattva vow. As mentioned previously, the Bodhisattva vow is a bit different from other vows and can be received in three ways. First, in the presence of a qualified spiritual teacher. Second, in front of the three jewels, such as a Buddha statue. And third, by visualizing the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in front of oneself and taking the vow before them. No matter which method you use, it is essential that you truly have the Bodhisattva vow and bodhicitta in your mind stream. This is very important. I am not opposed to having a written certificate for the vow. Having a certificate can certainly serve as a good proof. But having a certificate does not necessarily mean you truly possess the Bodhisattva vow in your mind streams. So as Mahayana practitioners, the first thing is to examine yourself. Do you truly have the Bodhisattva vow? This is very important. We have discussed this yesterday. Once you have the Bodhisattva vow in your mind streams, you should regularly examine your mind streams with mindfulness. As a Mahayana practitioner, it is essential to possess the Bodhisattva vow. This is extremely important. We have already discussed these points in general yesterday. According to the ornament of the secret intention, these 18 root precepts can be summarized as follows. They can all be included within the 4 root precepts described in the Bodhisattva Bhumi chapter of the Yogacara Bhumi. Yesterday, we also discussed the 14 root precepts. These include the 5 precepts of the king and the 5 precepts of a minister. If we look at their essence, the first 4 of the minister's precepts can actually be included within the 5 precepts of the king. So the 14 root precepts listed in the Akasagarbha Sutra can be organized in this way. They can be included within the 14, and this is how we should understand it. These 18 root precepts can be included within the 4 root precepts described by Tokme Zangpo in the Bodhisattva Bhumi chapter of the Yogacara Bhumi. In summary, the Bodhisattva vow generally consists of 3 types of discipline. The discipline of restraining from evil activity, the discipline of gathering virtue through practicing the 6 paramitas, and the discipline of bringing benefit to beings, which is solely for the welfare of others. All of the Bodhisattva vows can be included within these 3 types of discipline. This is somewhat different from the Pratimoksha vows. For example, in the Pratimoksha vows, it is said, abandon all evil, practice all virtue, and purify your mind. This is the essence of the Dharma. In other words, the Dharma is to refrain from negative actions and to practice virtue, and to keep the mind pure. This is the 3rd point. This is what Buddha Shakyamuni taught. According to the Pratimoksha or Hinayana perspective, our Dharma is simply not to do evil and to practice virtue, to practice the 10 virtues and to tame one's own mind stream. If we have these 3, that is the essence of the Dharma. But this is a bit different from the Mahayana. In Mahayana Buddhism, the first 2 are basically the same. It is also taught here that the discipline of restraining from evil activity means to abandon all negative actions. And the discipline of gathering virtue through practicing the 6 paramitas means to practice all virtue and to engage in all positive actions. The last, bringing benefit to all beings, is where Mahayana differs from the Hinayana. This is something we should understand. According to the Hinayana view, if I do not commit any negative actions and practice virtue, if I constantly watch my mind and tame myself, and if I wish to be free from samsara and develop renunciation, then I become a good practitioner. But from the Mahayana perspective, is such a person a Mahayana practitioner? Not necessarily. If I spend all day not doing any negative actions, reciting Amitabha Buddha's name or the mantra of Avalokiteshvara, turning prayer wheels and doing virtuous deeds every day, and if I am very strict with myself, never giving rise to anger or attachment, does this count as a Mahayana practitioner according to the Mahayana teachings? No, it does not. Why? The most fundamental reason is that we lack bodhicitta in our mind streams. So in Mahayana, we must also add the discipline of bringing benefit to beings as much as possible. The discipline of bringing benefit to beings is what distinguishes Mahayana from Hinayana. We can say this is a different type of discipline. In brief, the Bodhisattva's trainings are to abandon all factors that harm oneself and others, and to genuinely benefit both self and others. As Mahayana practitioners in the Bodhisattva vow, the first thing is to abandon all factors that harm oneself and others. This is the most fundamental point. Then we must genuinely benefit sentient beings. For example, in the Hinayana, as long as we do not commit negative actions and do not harm sentient beings, that is enough. In the Pratimoksha vows, as taught in the Vinaya, this is often emphasized. At that time, Buddha Shakyamuni's disciples, the bhikshus, were taught not to harm sentient beings and not to give rise to afflictions. They were to practice virtue and tame their own minds. That was enough. Nothing more was required. But in Mahayana Buddhism, there is one more point. To wholeheartedly benefit sentient beings, this is the most important. Benefiting sentient beings is the key point. If someone asks us, Are you a Mahayana practitioner or a Hinayana practitioner? Many people will say, of course I am a Mahayana practitioner. I have received empowerment. I study the Pure Land School. I study Chan Buddhism. How could I not be a Mahayana practitioner? But do we truly put benefiting sentient beings first every day? Is it really our top priority? Not necessarily. I want to achieve realization for myself. I want to practice well myself. So sometimes we need to reflect and look within. Are we really Mahayana practitioners or not? This is something we should all examine carefully. The way to bring benefit is also explained in the 20 verses on the Bodhisattva Vow. Whether for others or for oneself, even if it is painful, as long as it is beneficial, all benefit and happiness should be accomplished. If it is pleasurable but not beneficial, it should not be done. This is explained very clearly here. Whether it is for ourselves or for others, if something is painful but brings benefit in this life or future lives and is beneficial for sentient beings, then we should do it. Any action that brings benefit and happiness should be done. When we do something, it may be difficult, but if it benefits sentient beings and ourselves, then we should do it. For example, when we are engaged in Dharma activities, such as releasing captive lives or engaging in hearing, contemplation, and meditation. Of course, if we do nothing and just spend our days idly, compared to that, doing something meaningful is always more difficult. Whether it is Dharma work or helping others, it is always challenging. But if it benefits sentient beings and ourselves, as Mahayana practitioners, we should do it. If something is pleasurable but not beneficial, we should not do it. There are some things that may seem enjoyable for a while, but in the end, they are not truly beneficial for ourselves or others. If something is not beneficial for sentient beings or ourselves, then we should not do it. For example, taking drugs or drinking alcohol. Many people in the world today, when they have free time, go to nightclubs, waste their time or gamble. On the surface, it may seem enjoyable, and people who drink may feel happy for a while. But this is just a feeling. If they go to other places of entertainment, they may feel a bit of happiness for a while, but in the long run, it is not beneficial for this life or the next. It is always harmful. So a wise person should not act in this way. In daily life, when running a business or a company, we should always reflect, is what I am doing creating negative karma? Is it harmful to the lives of sentient beings? If it is, and it is not beneficial for our future, it is best not to do it. There are so many professions in the world, so many things we could do. Why choose something that harms sentient beings? It is not worth making a living by harming others. The lives of sentient beings, as explained in the adornment of the middle way, are as impermanent as bubbles blown by the wind. To spend decades of human life making a living by creating negative karma is truly a sad thing. So a wise person should always reflect. And a wise person reflects on everything, just like intelligent people in the world today, who reflect on all aspects of their lives, such as their family and their career. But most people today, because of our environment, education, and many other factors involved, don't seem to reflect very much. Very few people truly consider the happiness of this and future lives. Very few people think about things on this front. As true practitioners, we should reflect on this deeply. Just as it is taught here, in the 20 verses on the Bodhisattva Vow, we should ask ourselves, are my actions truly bring benefits for ourselves as well as others? We should always reflect in this way. That is to say, if one's motivation is pure and one's actions are virtuous, then there is absolutely no downfall. Whenever we do anything, the first thing to consider is whether our motivation is virtuous. After checking our mind, then we should see whether our actions are wholesome. If both our mind and our actions are virtuous, then there is no way that any downfall can occur. For example, if I release captive lives with a good heart, is there any fault in that? Certainly not. If I praise the Buddha or my teacher with a mind of respect, is there any fault in that? Of course not. If both my mind and my actions are virtuous, anyone can see that such actions are blameless. There is no fault in them. On the other hand, if one's motivation is malicious and one's actions are harmful, then it is definitely a downfall. Conversely, if both my mind and my actions are negative, for example, if I kill out of anger or commit sexual misconduct conduct out of desire, or if I speak of others' faults out of jealousy, then both my mind and my actions are unwholesome, and this is definitely a downfall. When we talk about precepts, there are 4 types. This is the second type. So what is the third type? If the motivation is good, even if the external action appears to be negative, it is only the appearance of a downfall, not an actual downfall. Here, if our motivation is very good, but our external action does not seem to be in accordance with the Dharma, is this a real offense? It is only the appearance of a downfall, not an actual downfall. We should know this clearly. On the surface, it may look like a misdeed, but in reality, there is no fault. For example, when a hunter is chasing a wild animal, if we have compassion for animals, we tell a lie and say, there are no animals here. Or if our parents are very stingy and unwilling to give alms or release captive lives, and we quietly take some money from their wallet and use it for releasing lives. On the surface, our actions look like stealing, but in fact, it is a virtuous act, a good deed. There should be no selfish motivation in this. If there is even a little selfishness, then what we do it for ourselves, and that is not acceptable. But if we are truly doing it for the benefit of others, then from this perspective, there is no fault, because our motivation is completely free of self-interest. As we mentioned before, Captain Compassionate Heart killed someone to save the 500 merchants and was willing to bear the consequences himself. Although on the surface this seems like a misdeed, in reality it is not a misdeed. On the other hand, if one's motivation is not pure, then even if one's actions appear very proper, no matter how dignified they seem, it is only the appearance of being free from downfalls. For example, if our motivation is not good at all, if our mind is not pure, but our actions appear very proper and in accordance with the Dharma, then in reality, this is a serious misdeed. Some lay practitioners are like this. On the surface, they say, I'm spreading the Dharma, I'm selling books, but in reality, all the money from selling books goes into their own pocket. They spend it on themselves, eating meat, and so on. In such cases, the fault is certainly very great. Sometimes even some teachers use Buddhism as a pretext, saying, I am spreading the Dharma, giving empowerments, my teachings are so special, but their real purpose is to receive offerings. Then they use the offerings for their own enjoyment. On the surface, it looks like they are spreading the Dharma and accumulating great merit, but in reality, their motivation is not for the benefit of sentient beings. There is basically no element of benefiting others. Their only goal is to support themselves. Similarly, some people print books or make many DVDs, which looks very good, but in fact, they are just trying to make money from it. They have many faults in this regard. So we should always reflect on ourselves. Some people may think, if I do something negative with a good heart, is that okay? Some people may think, my mind is pure. But just saying the mind is pure does not make it so. Saying my mind is pure is not enough. We should examine things according to Dharma reasoning. Some people say, my mind is pure, so it's fine if I steal a little, my mind is pure. But just saying so is not enough. If our real motivation for stealing is for ourselves, then it is definitely not good. If we have no self-interest at all, even if our own life is at risk, it doesn't matter. If we steal for the sake of releasing captive lives, like Master Yongming Yanshou, who once used a large sum from the royal treasury to release captive lives, and when he was about to be sentenced to death, he showed no fear and was even happy, thinking that to save so many beings, it was worth giving up his own life. Later, the king was so moved that he made him the national teacher. There are such stories in history, though the accounts may differ. So, in our actions, we should always check whether our mind is truly pure. This is something we must always examine. For example, regarding the 7 precepts of physical and verbal actions, there are times when exceptions are allowed to make. But for the mind, there are never exceptions. Why is this? Because if our mind gives rise to attachment, anger, ignorance, or wrong views, then the negative karma has already been created. Once it has arisen, even if we give it a nice name, it doesn't help, even if our actions may not be obvious to others. But unless there is a special reason, our actions should also be in accordance with the Dharma. This is very important. So far, we have discussed how to uphold the Bodhisattva vow. Every Dharma friend should reflect on this. Many of us have received the Bodhisattva vow. After a while, we will receive the Bodhisattva vow again in various ways. After receiving the Bodhisattva vow, observe how well we are maintaining it. Whether in Tibetan regions or Han regions, we take the Bodhisattva vow not seriously enough. For example, in the Pratimoksha vows, if someone breaks a root precept, such as stealing sexual misconduct or telling a great lie, the monastery will expel them. If someone breaks a root precept, they are expelled. And the person themselves also think, I have broken a root precept, and voluntarily leave. This does happen, but in the Mahayana Bodhisattva vow, many Dharma teachers do not investigate whether one has broken a Bodhisattva root vow, and we ourselves may not know either. Most people do not pay attention to this. In fact, the Bodhisattva and the Hinayana precepts are the same. The Hinayana has its root precepts, and our Mahayana Bodhicitta also has root precepts. If we do not restore a broken root precept, the fault is even greater than breaking a Hinayana precept. So we should take this issue seriously. But traditionally, in many monasteries, this is not given much attention. In many places, the Bodhisattva vow is conferred. But after the ceremony, no one follows up. No one checks which precepts one has received or whether one has broken the vow. What are the root precepts? What are the branch precepts? These points are rarely emphasized. So now each of us, in studying the Bodhicharyavatara, we must do deep. As I mentioned before, each of us should see whether we can truly plant the Vajra seed of bodhicitta in our mind streams. This is extremely rare over countless lifetimes. So this time, each of us should observe our own mind. In the morning, whether we practice taking refuge in the three jewels or cultivating bodhicitta. Of course, some may not know the specific methods for cultivating bodhicitta, but we will discuss them in detail later. Generally speaking, many Dharma friends are practicing quite well now. But sometimes I don't practice very well myself. Sometimes it goes well. I am not too sleepy in the morning, and I feel quite satisfied spending half an hour each day in practice. It feels good, and I gain a lot from it. Usually we talk about bodhicitta and benefiting beings. But when it comes to actual practice, it is important to really visualize and train the mind. There is a big difference between just talking about the Dharma and actually integrating it into your mind stream. The power and the results are completely different. But sometimes as ordinary beings, our thoughts are very scattered. So sometimes in the morning, we are thinking about what to do today, how to arrange things. And it seems that in that half hour, we have already planned the whole day. But by the time we dedicate the merit, we wonder, what merit am I actually dedicating? This happens only rarely, not very often. But it does happen sometimes. In any case, I think I will gradually adjust. Since our mind has never been disciplined since beginningless time, it is natural that this happens. I think some of our Dharma friends may have similar experiences. But I personally feel that, although I am the one speaking here, in terms of actual practice, I am probably the weakest amongst all. Among all the members, even though I am teaching, I am probably the least accomplished. This is not just being modest. I often think this way myself. Next, let's talk about the restoration of the Bodhisattva vow. What to do if the vow is broken. In other words, if the Bodhisattva vow is broken, how can it be restored? Previously, we discussed if we buy a device and it breaks, should we repair it or buy a new one? This is something to consider. Section 3, the method of restoration. As stated in the 20 verses on the Bodhisattva vow, for a major bound one must retake the vow. For lesser faults, confess in front of one person. This mainly presents the view of Tokme Zangpo. Tokme Zangpo's view is as follows. If we have broken the Bodhisattva vow, the degree of the transgression varies. There are higher, medium, and lower levels. For those with higher faults, the negative karma created can be quite serious. For example, if we abandon aspirational bodhicitta or engaged bodhicitta or break many of the precepts, this is called a major bound. The term bound in the Abhidharma Kosha is also used to refer to afflictions and obscurations. If we have committed a major transgression, we must retake the vow to restore it. If it is a medium-level root downfall, then we should confess our faults in front of at least 3 people who uphold the Bodhisattva vow. For lesser faults, if the vow is not completely lost, but there is some degree of damage, then we can confess in front of 1 person. Whether there is defilement or not depends on one's own mind. We should check our minds with mindfulness to examine whether we have committed a serious or minor fault, whether it is a root downfall or an auxiliary fault. we should purify our mind stream through self-reflection. This is very important. According to Tokme Zangpo's view, we should confess in front of others. This is a rather strict requirement. When the requirements are strict, we must have an object of confession. For example, today we retake the vow in front of someone, and if we break it again and have to go back to them, we will feel embarrassed. There is a sense of shame. So, Tokme Zangpo's requirements are quite strict. It is necessary to restore the vow in front of others. This is one approach. Next is Nagarjuna's method of restoration. This is according to Nagarjuna's view. The compendium of training says, in a dream, abide before Akasagarbha and confess. That is to say, if we have broken a root downfall of the Bodhisattva vow, we can confess. Of course, confession can be done in front of a Buddha statue or in front of the three jewels. When confessing, especially here, it is explained for people of superior, middling, and lesser capacity. For those of superior capacity, as explained in some sutras, one sits upright and let the mind rest in meditative state of emptiness. In that state, both the one who confesses and the object of confession are seen as non-existent. One confesses while resting in the nature of mind. For those of middling capacity, one should confess in front of Bodhisattva Akasagarbha. The method of confession is as described in Bodhisattva Vow texts. If we have broken a root precept, visualize Bodhisattva Akasagarbha and in front of him pray, make offerings, and confess. Sometimes this may even happen in a dream. In the dream, Bodhisattva Akasagarbha may appear as a person or in another form and give us a sign that our downfall has been purified. If we do not have such a dream, then at dawn we can address the dawn itself, saying, as you shine upon Jambudvipa, please tell Bodhisattva Akasagarbha on my behalf that I wish to purify and confess. Go to sleep with this intention, and through the blessing of Bodhisattva Akasagarbha after dawn, we may have a dream in which we receive a sign. Some Dharma friends have told me that when they meditate in the morning, they fall asleep sometimes. By the time they wake up, the session is already finished. Maybe they are off looking for Bodhisattva Akasagarbha. This is the method of confession for those of middling capacity. For those of lesser capacity, confession is done by relying on the four powers. Some people have little ability to visualize, and it is difficult for them to rest in the state of emptiness. For such people, it is best to use the four powers for confession, as we often discuss. In short, we should regularly recite the Bodhisattva's confession of downfalls, recite the Vajrasattva mantra, or the 100-syllable mantra, and so on. Confessing in this way is very important. In the past, some disciples asked Dromtonpa, how can we fully give rise to and uphold bodhicitta in our mind stream? He said there are two methods. The first is to accumulate merit diligently by practicing the 7 branches. The second is to confess diligently using the 4 powers. He gave these two as the instructions of the lineage masters. For ordinary people, it is very difficult not to break the Bodhisattva vow. It is quite challenging. For example, Lord Atisha said that he never broke the Pratimoksha vows. But when it came to the Bodhisattva vow, he did break it a little. As for the Tantric vows, he broke them quite often. The higher the level of the vows, the more subtle and difficult they are to keep. Therefore, as ordinary beings, it is rare to find someone who never gives rise to anger or self-cherishing, or who never praises themselves or disparages others. Such people are very rare among ordinary beings. So the Bodhisattva vow is somewhat different from other vows. According to Nagarjuna, one should receive and uphold the vow every day. By doing so, any damage to the Bodhisattva vow in our mind streams is immediately repaired. So the merit of this is very great. In the future, I hope everyone will make an effort to keep the Bodhisattva vow in your mind stream pure. This is extremely important. Next, we will discuss the main explanation. Section 2, the main explanation is divided into 3 parts. 1, preparation. 2, main practice. 3, conclusion. Section 1, preparation is divided into 2 parts. 1, purifying one's mind stream. 2, cultivating the mind for the benefit of others. The first, purifying one's mind stream, is divided into 8 aspects. The first of these is offering, which we will discuss next. This is also referred to as the 8 branches or the 7 branches. The first is the branch of offering. Offering is divided into 2. 1, general explanation. 2, specific explanation. General explanation. Why is this called the general explanation of offering? Because under this category, whether it is offering manifested by the power of the mind or material offering, whether the offering has an owner or not, the object of all these offerings should be the 3 jewels. Drumtumpa also taught this. He said that the best object for practicing the 7 branches is the 3 jewels. We should make offerings in front of the 3 jewels. Practicing the 7 branches in front of the 3 jewels brings great merit. So when we practice the 7 branches, we should do it in front of the 3 jewels, such as a Buddha statue, sutra, or stupa. Whatever practice we do, confession, offering, or anything else, it should be done in front of such objects. First, the verse says, in order to grasp that precious attitude, I make fine offerings to the Tathagatas, to the true Dharma, the immaculate jewel, and to the oceans of qualities, Bodhisattvas. The commentary also explains it this way. In order to uphold the precious bodhicitta, I now make offerings to all the perfectly enlightened ones as the field of merit, to all the immaculate and stainless Dharma, and to all the noble bodhisattvas whose qualities are as vast as the ocean. In other words, these are the objects of our offering. As the verse says, why do we make offerings to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas? It is so that we can give rise to a most precious and rare bodhicitta in our mind streams, just as described earlier in the chapter on the benefits of bodhicitta. This rare and precious bodhicitta is something everyone should aspire to attain. Everyone should wish to attain it. Such a precious mind cannot be obtained without causes and conditions. First, we should make offerings in front of the 3 jewels. The 3 jewels are the Tathagata, who possess the vast and boundless qualities, the immaculate and stainless true Dharma, and the great Mahayana noble ones, such as Avalokiteshvara and Manjushri. These are the 3 jewels. That is, in front of the 3 jewels, with the motivation to attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings, with pleasing and excellent offerings, with purity of the 3 conceptual spheres, free from any faults, and dedicating the merit to great enlightenment. These are the 6 ways of making offerings. This is how offerings should be made, as explained by Tokme Zangpo. When making offerings, 6 conditions must be present. What are these conditions? Whenever we make any kind of offering, we should keep these in mind. Nowadays, many people in the world make offerings for the sake of their family or work. Of course, there is nothing wrong with this. As we have said before, the blessings of the 3 jewels are inconceivable. With the power and blessings of the 3 jewels, what we wish for in our heart may indeed come true. But from a long-term perspective, as Mahayana practitioners, when making offerings, we should fulfill these 6 conditions. The first condition is that whatever we offer, we should do so with the wish to attain Buddhahood. It is not primarily for promotion, health, or other worldly aims. These are not so important. The first aim is to make offerings in order to attain Buddhahood. That is the first condition. The second condition is that our offering should be for the benefit of all beings, not just ourselves. This is how offerings were made in the past. And some Kadampa masters taught that they would say, previously, all our actions were those of ordinary beings, but now we must start a new life. We really need this kind of attitude. If our attitude does not change, most Buddhists may never have truly generated Mahayana bodhicitta. Even after many years of practice, the daily motivation is still just for oneself. There's nothing more. So the second point is that whatever offering we make, it should be for the benefit of all beings. This is the second condition. Everyone should remember these points. The third condition is that the offerings we make should be free from impurity and uncleanliness. They should not be dirty or inferior items. We should not offer anything that is bad or spoiled. We should offer what we like best, what is most beautiful and pure. The cleanest and purest things should be offered in front of Buddha statues and holy images. This is regarding the offerings themselves. The fourth point is the purity of the 3 conceptual spheres. Of course, as ordinary beings, this may be difficult for us. This means the object of offering, the one making the offering, and the offering itself should all be embraced with the view of emptiness. It is a state where nothing is truly grasped. If we cannot do this, at least we should remember that everything is empty in nature, but in conventional terms, we still make offerings with these items. This is also acceptable. The fifth point is that the offering should be free from any faults. During the process of offering, it is best not to have anger, attachment, jealousy, or other negative emotions. For example, if someone else has already made an offering to my teacher, I want to make an even bigger offering out of competitiveness, or I make offerings with anger or other negative emotions. This is not good. It is best to make offerings with a pure mind. If we feel reluctant to offer 10 yuan, but are willing to offer 5, like we may first take out 10, then change our mind and offer less. Or we may take out 10, but then feel reluctant, so we look for some change. Recently a beggar came to me, and I gave him 10 yuan, but felt a bit reluctant. I thought it was a bit too much. It is best not to have a miserly mind. Then I accidentally take out 100 yuan, the feeling of reluctance is even greater. Finally, after searching, I find some small change. Sometimes in the process of adjusting our mind, even greater obstacles may arise. In any case, our mind must be pure. Finally, dedicate the merit of whatever we offer to all beings and to enlightenment. This is extremely important. So every time we make an offering, no matter the circumstances, we must ensure that these conditions are present. Make offerings with these 5 conditions. Whenever we make offerings, our mind must be pure. As mentioned earlier, why do we make offerings in this way? In fact, it is because we wish to uphold the precious bodhicitta. Before receiving bodhicitta, it is essential to arrange offerings. When Lord Atisha first came to Tibetan regions, he did the same. Many disciples at that time requested the Bodhisattva vow from Lord Atisha. He said, if I am to confer the Bodhisattva vow, you must first arrange proper offerings in front of the 3 jewels. So the disciples did their best to prepare offerings. But when Lord Atisha saw them, he was not satisfied. He asked them to rearrange the offerings, and this happened several times. After they had changed the offering several times, Lord Atisha was finally pleased and conferred the Bodhisattva vow upon them. There are records of this in the history of Tibetan regions. So when we truly wish to receive the Bodhisattva vow in our mind streams, the first step is to overcome any stinginess in our mind by making offerings in front of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. This is very important. When His Holiness was alive, at the Academy, every year on the 4th day of the 6th month, the day Buddha Shakyamuni turned the wheel of Dharma, His Holiness always conferred the Bodhisattva vow. When the vow was conferred, His Holiness required that the entire main hall be decorated with colorful silk, wildflowers from the mountains, plastic flowers, lamps, water, and all kinds of offerings. Everything was arranged in a very magnificent and grand way. Everyone should remember these scenes clearly. So, before receiving the Bodhisattva vow, it is essential to make either material or visualized offerings. This is indispensable. Therefore, in daily life, in front of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, we should always think, in order to uphold bodhicitta in my daily life, I make offerings many times. Whenever we see something pleasing or beautiful, think in our heart, I offer this to the 3 jewels. This is an essential practice in our daily lives. Of course, some people may have different approaches to practice. Some people understand the principle, but when they encounter something truly wonderful, they don't think of offering it. Once, a Dharma teacher from our academy went to Changji Road in Chengdu. At night, this teacher saw the beautiful lights, which were very magnificent. And he began to recite prayers. And some lay people nearby asked, "Teacher, what are you mumbling?" When this Dharma teacher saw such beautiful offerings, he immediately offered them to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. But some people cannot do this. When they see something nice, they just think, how nice it would be if I had it, or it would be great to live there. This really happens. Mipham Rinpoche also said that a wise person, whether in happiness or suffering, will reflect and use this as an opportunity for practice. But a foolish person, whether happy or suffering, rarely can transform them for their practice. So there is a big difference between the wise and the foolish. Many lay people, of course, we can understand. Because of the pressures of life, they have many daily concerns. Their minds are filled with things unrelated to the Dharma. It's all kinds of things not connected to the Dharma. So when we are in any environment, we may not immediately remember to make offerings. But if we haven't done this before, try to gradually change our lifestyle and mindset. See if we can make a small shift. As I mentioned before, for most people, the time spent on practice is very limited. If we spend 10 hours a day on worldly matters, it's unlikely we spend another 5 hours on the Dharma. At most, maybe 1 hour or half an hour, and even then, it may not be very effective. So for most people, the time and energy for Dharma practice is very limited, and the strength is also quite weak. In this situation, we need to use some discipline or self-reminder. No matter what, whether our mind is willing or not, we must find ways to make a change. Try to make our life a little different from before. Recently, we distributed the Pure Land teachings to various places. Many people thought, it's just a small booklet. How could it take over a month to study? There's nothing much to learn, it's too simple, and many people became arrogant. I noticed their arrogance and I was a bit displeased. So I immediately made up 48 quiz questions, which correspond to the 48 vows of Buddha Amitabha. It sounds nice to call them the 48 vows. We distributed them, and after that, people realized that even this small booklet contains a lot of content. Only then did many people feel it was worth studying. Actually, whether it's the Pure Land teachings or the Bodhicharyavatara, some Dharma friends here have listened to the Bodhicharyavatara many times and still need to attend study groups and listen again. So why is it that some people in the cities have never really studied the Dharma well? They spend all their time on all sorts of entertainment and distractions. If we don't study seriously every day, we may not really understand or absorb the teachings. So when it comes to offerings, everyone should pay close attention. We should be clear about the object of our offerings. Always visualize clearly. This is the general explanation. In the specific explanation, there are 6 points. The first is things we offer have no owner. In other words, things that do not belong to anyone. We visualize in our minds that we are offering these to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. This is truly offering ownerless things. There are also 2 aspects to the reason for making offerings. First, the verse says, as many fruits and flowers as there are, whatever kinds of medicine exist, however many jewels there are in the world, all clean and pleasant waters there may be. The commentary also explained this. As stated in the King of Samadhi Sutra, all pure water in the worlds of the 10 directions, all the flowers that grow in the plains, and all jewels and other things that do not belong to anyone else, these should all be offered. This refers to all the pure water in the world, flowers, jewels, and so on, as long as they are not clearly owned by someone else or do not have an obvious owner. We should offer all of these to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. All the beautiful flowers in the world, precious fruits, all kinds of wonderful medicines, rare and unique treasures, and pure water with the 8 qualities that brings comfort and delight. We should aspire to offer all of these. In fact, after each verse of offering, it does not explicitly say to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, but as explained in the general explanation above, the object of our offering has already been made clear. It refers to the 3 jewels, the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So whenever we see anything, let's take flowers as the first example, as mentioned here. Whatever kind of flowers we see, whether it's azaleas, plum blossoms, or magnolias in Tibetan regions, the great aspiration flowers, the protector flowers, and many other kinds of flowers. Whenever we see such beautiful flowers, we should immediately think, I offer these to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. His Holiness used to do this as well. In the summer, he would go to gardens or meadows full of flowers or grassy fields covered with blossoms, and he would recite prayers and make offerings to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. He would begin to recite the ritual and make offerings. If we develop this habit, whenever we see beautiful flowers, whether indoors or in a garden, even when taking a walk, we can immediately visualize, I offer these beautiful flowers to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. This is how we should train our minds. The same goes for precious fruits, as mentioned here. All kinds of rare and precious fruits, or the fruits we commonly see, pears, apples, and so on. You may think many kinds of fruit right now, bananas, loquats, mangoes, and apples. As we already mentioned, once a child went to a place and saw an apple or something similar offered in front of a Buddha statue. He noticed the offerings and asked, I really want to eat this. Can I have it? The host said, yeah, you can have it, but I have already offered these fruits to Guru Padmasambhava and Buddha Shakyamuni. It's best if you ask Guru Padmasambhava. If he agrees, you can have it. So the child said, Guru Padmasambhava, I really want to eat this apple. Can I have it? Then this child replied to himself, yes, you can. And then he took the apple and ate it. This is a very amusing story. I personally think such fruit offerings are also very good. But regarding offerings, Karma Chakme Rinpoche once said that offerings should not be eaten casually. They should be placed in a clean place. In some Han region cities, there is a lot of debate about how to handle offerings. Generally, for such offerings, if we can truly visualize that the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas have given them to us, just as Guru Padmasambhava said, yes, you can. If we can truly visualize this, then it is acceptable. We can enjoy the offerings the same as we enjoy the chalk offering by visualize that the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas have given them to us. If we do not do this, especially in big cities, it can be quite difficult to handle offerings properly. Throwing them in the trash is even less appropriate, or dumping them on someone else's rooftop. Especially in cities, it's almost impossible to handle offerings in the traditional way. So there are many different opinions on this issue. In Tibetan regions, in some monasteries, during certain ceremonies, the offerings are distributed to everyone. People think the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas have given their permission and visualize accordingly. Then they can enjoy the offerings themselves. This does happen. So in this matter, it depends on our own situation. As long as we are not motivated by greed, if we accept offerings in this way, it is probably not a problem. So regarding offerings, we should think in this way. For example, some lay people nowadays go shopping for groceries every day. Monastics also need to buy food. There's nothing wrong with that. In the market, many monastics buy a lot of things every day. At such times, when we see good fruit, whether we want to eat it or think of something about it, we should think of offering it to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So whenever we see any fruit, we can make offerings. We can visualize in this way. On the surface, some people, whether on the street or in a garden, when we go to the park on weekends, there are so many flowers in the park. We can visualize offering each of them to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. In fact, our offerings are complete in such a way. Just think in our heart, look at all these beautiful, colorful flowers, all these wonderful flowers. I offer all of them to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. May bodhicitta arise in my mind stream soon. If we think in this way, then even going to the garden is meaningful. In the summer, when we see the mountains covered in flowers, we should also make offerings in this way. Once we went to the Zongta grasslands. It was the grassland where we attended middle school. There were so many flowers there. It is a sea of flowers. It was beyond words, impossible to describe. At that time, we recited the ritual and felt very happy in our hearts. With so many flowers to offer to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, we felt especially joyful. So it's good to develop this habit in daily life. Wherever we go, there are always many opportunities. I believe we always have opportunities for practice. It's just that sometimes our mindfulness are not strong enough. Now we talk about all kinds of medicines, like lilies, cloves, various Chinese medicines, Tibetan medicines, and even Western medicines. When we go to a pharmacy, whatever kind of medicine we see, it's all suitable. As long as it can cure the illnesses of sentient beings, we should visualize to offer it to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, or worldly treasures like coral, agate, amber, gold, silver, iron, copper, and so on. All of these should be offered to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. All these precious things can be offered in this way. And then there is clear, pleasing water. Whenever we see pure water in a mountain valley, we should think, such good water. I offer it to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Even when we fetch water, we offer the fresh water to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas first. When Lord Atisha came to Tibetan regions, he said, in India, the water is so muddy that it cannot be offered. But here in Tibet, just offering water is enough to complete all accumulations. There are so many places in Tibetan regions with such clear, crystal and pure water for our accumulation of merits. At that time, Lord Atisha probably found that in India there was nothing like this. When His Holiness went there, the water in India was basically like the water in big cities today, filtered and purified, but not as clear as the water in Tibetan regions. Water as clear as that in Tibetan regions is probably not found elsewhere. Sometimes when you arrive in Tibetan regions, the water, the blue sky, and the white clouds all become natural offerings. It is truly a wonderful feeling. So in daily life, offering water is the easiest. It doesn't cost anything. Buying fruit or apples can be expensive. And sometimes we feel stingy. I sometimes feel stingy about this, just joking. But water is not difficult to offer. Every day we can offer 7 bowls of water. For everyone, this is not particularly hard. Offer 7 bowls of water every morning. Recite offering mantras or verses in front of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Make offerings in this way. The merit of this is truly great. In Tibetan Buddhism, why do we offer 7 bowls of water? This has been explained before. When Buddha Shakyamuni was born, he took 7 steps on the earth. To commemorate this, the tradition of offering 7 bowls of water began. This is one explanation. So, in daily life, we should make offerings to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in this way. This is very important. The commentary also explains the pure water of 8 qualities. As it is said, cool, fragrant, soft, clear, free from impurities, pleasant to the throat, and does not harm the stomach. This is the pure water of 8 qualities. It is also mentioned in the Vinaya and in various commentaries. There are explanations of it in the heavens and in the human world. There are many different explanations. The pure water of 8 qualities possesses 8 special features. Pure water in the human world can also be called water of 8 qualities. The first is coolness. It feels especially refreshing to drink, brings relief, detoxifies, and dispels heat. Such water is called cool water. The second is fragrance, water that is especially sweet and pleasant, with no bad smell at all. It is not stinky in any way. Such water is called fragrant water. The third is clarity. Some water has a high mineral content, which can make you feel unwell after drinking it. But clear water does not harm the body at all. It is very gentle. The fourth is softness, water that is soft and pleasant to drink. The fifth is clarity, water that is not at all turbid. It is very pure and clean. The sixth is freedom from impurities, water that is extremely clean. It is free from any contamination. The seventh is that it does not harm the throat when drunk. After drinking, it does not harm your throat at all. The eighth is that after drinking, it does not cause diarrhea or discomfort. There are no such problems. Usually after water is filtered or boiled, it has these qualities. But nowadays, many mineral waters or other types of water may not suit everyone. Truly pure water of 8 qualities, in the Pure Land School of Chinese Buddhism, for example, in the Amitabha Sutra, in the translations from the Yokin of Tang dynasties, there are different names and explanations. I once saw a thesis on the 8 qualities of water, where each quality was explained in detail. But here, there is no need to go into great detail. The main point is that whenever we see such pure water, or especially clear water, we should make offerings. Wherever we go, if we encounter good water in a mountain valley or in a great river, when we see it, we should think, I immediately offer this wonderful water to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Keep this thinking in our heart. This is the first point. Let's stop here for today.
Chupun tsulen chua chua xiao Bandar gara badna atsadar da Bandar gara badna atsadar Bandar gara badna atsadar da